door
Look
clicked
at this.
behind him like a
It
trigger.
matches the
No
description.
window,
Where did you
no
get this,
second
kid?
exit, just
We know
heat,
you were there.
steam, and four grown men who didn't smile with their mouths, only with their hands. The boy stood in the middle of the room like he'd been placed there on purpose, 12 years old, too small for the job, too calm for the danger. On the table was a body covered in a tarp, fresh, still holding on to warmth like it didn't know it was done. One of the men, thick neck, gold tooth, the type who never learned to whisper, leaned in close and spoke soft anyway. "Go on, Eli, touch him." Eli didn't move right away. Not because he was scared, because he understood the price. Everybody in Harlem understood prices. Some paid in cash, some paid in blood. He paid in memory. I watched from the corner where the shadows stayed honest. I didn't have to step forward. In a room like that, attention was a bullet and I didn't feel like catching one. The man with the gold tooth nodded at the tarp. "Boss wants to know what happened. Nobody saw nothing. You see everything." Eli finally lifted his hand. That's when the room got quiet in a way that ain't natural, like the air itself leaned in. His fingers found the dead man's skin through the cloth, one small touch like a child checking if a stove is hot, and the boy's face changed. Not dramatic, not some movie scream, just a shift, like the lights behind his eyes went somewhere else. His mouth opened and a breath came out that didn't belong to him. "The alley," he said, voice thin. "Two men. One of them wore gloves." The gold-toothed man glanced at the others. Gloves meant planning. Planning meant message. Eli swallowed hard. His throat worked like he was trying to push something back down. "They didn't shoot him right away," he continued. "They made him beg first." One of the men laughed, sharp and quick. Like pain was entertainment. Eli's knees flexed, just a little, like the memory was heavy and his bones had to adjust. Then he said the part that changed the room. He knew one of them. Silence again, the thick kind, the kind that makes people check where their gun sits. Gold Tooth stepped closer. "Who?" Eli's eyes tracked left like he was watching it happen again. He called him cousin. Now in Harlem, cousin don't always mean blood. Sometimes it means you broke bread together. Sometimes it means you did dirt together. Either way, it means the killer wasn't a stranger. And that's when I saw it, the smallest twitch in one man's jaw, a man standing by the boiler, arms folded, acting like stone. Stone don't twitch unless it's cracked. I didn't say nothing. I didn't need to. You don't always expose betrayal right away. Sometimes you let it breathe. Let it get comfortable. Let it step closer to the edge on its own. The boy's hand slipped off the tarp like it got burned. He looked at his palm like it belonged to somebody else. Gold Tooth grabbed him by the shoulder, too rough, too familiar. "Tell us the face." Eli flinched. And the moment Gold Tooth's skin met the boy's, I saw it happen. Not with my eyes, with my experience. I'd seen men get stabbed and keep talking. I'd seen men get shot and still light a cigarette. I'd seen courage and I'd seen stupidity dressed up as courage, but I hadn't seen what the boy could do up close. Gold Tooth froze. His grin faded like somebody wiped it off with a wet rag. His eyes widened and the color drained out his face so fast it looked like his blood ran away. He let go of Eli like Eli turned into ice. Gold Tooth staggered back, hands up, palms out, pleading to nothing. "No, no, I didn't," he whispered. His knees hit the floor, and then he started screaming. Not because somebody hurt him in the room, because somebody hurt him in his head. Gold Tooth clawed at his own mouth like something was inside there, like boiling, like choking, like dying. He rolled onto his back, kicking, sweating, crying. His suit jacket darkened with panic. One of the other men stepped forward, alarmed. "What's wrong with him?" Eli backed away, shaking now, like his body caught up to what the room already knew. "I didn't mean to," Eli said. "I don't choose it." Gold Tooth's scream dropped into a rasp. He thrashed once more, then grabbed his chest with both hands like he was trying to keep his heart from escaping. His eyes met mine. That's when he recognized me. And that recognition, right before his breath cut, told me everything I needed to know. Gold Tooth wasn't just guilty of something old. He was guilty of something connected. He was guilty of something that had been waiting for a hand to pull it into daylight. He went still, not peaceful, just. Finished, the room erupted. One man ran to the door. Locked, another man grabbed the tarp and yanked it off the body like he needed proof of reality. There it was, the dead man on the table, and now Gold Tooth on the floor beside him, face twisted like he died in a nightmare nobody else could see. The man by the boiler, the one with the cracked stone twitch, stared at Eli like Eli was a weapon that started firing on its own. And that's the part people don't understand about power. Real power ain't loud. It don't shout. It don't explain itself. It just changes the math in the room. Eli stood there, small and trembling, but the grown men had taken 2 steps back from him, because every one of them was thinking the same thing. If the kid can do that by accident, what happens if he does it on purpose? I walked forward then, slow. Not to comfort the boy. Comfort is a luxury. I walked forward because I wanted them to see something else. I wanted them to remember Harlem has rules, even in a locked room. I crouched beside Gold Tooth. Didn't touch him. Didn't need to. Death speaks loud enough without an audience. I looked up at the others. "Y'all got business," I said quietly. "Handle it without panicking." The man by the boiler scoffed, but it came out thin. "This ain't business, this is. This is consequences," I cut in, calm, clean. "And consequences don't care what you call it." Eli's breathing was uneven. His eyes looked too old for his face, like he'd been awake for years. I turned slightly so only he could hear me. "Listen to me, kid," I said. "Don't touch nobody else unless I tell you." What? He nodded fast, desperate, but even that nod came with fear, not of the men, of himself, because Eli knew something I knew too. A gift that only works when people die isn't a gift, it's a leash, and somebody put it on him a long time ago. The boiler man finally spoke, voice low, like he was trying to sound brave in front of a ghost. "The boss gonna want answers," he said. "He sent us here for answers. He ain't gonna like hearing his man drop dead after grabbing a child." I stood up. "The boss," I repeated, tasting the words like they might be poison. "Everybody got a boss until they meet something they can't buy." I looked at the dead man on the table, then at Gold Tooth on the floor, then back at Eli. "Tell me what you saw," I said. "Not for them, for me." What? Eli blinked hard, trying to hold the pictures inside his head where they belonged. "The one who killed him," Eli whispered. "He kept saying, 'It's already done.' He thinks he runs it. He don't run nothing." My chest went still, because I'd heard that kind of talk before. The kind people say when they've already made the decision to move against a king. Eli continued, voice cracking. "And then he said your name." The room shrank. Every man in it leaned forward without meaning to. "What name?" I asked. Eli swallowed. His eyes flicked to the boiler man again, fear and recognition in the same look. He said, "Bumpy." Now I don't scare easy. I don't jump at shadows. I don't get rattled by rumor. But when a dead man's last memory carries your name out of his mouth, that ain't rumor. That's a warning. The boiler man stepped back, suddenly careful, like he realized he'd been standing too close to a fire. "You," he said to me, voice sharp, "you been playing both sides." I didn't answer him, because the truth wasn't simple enough for his vocabulary. I turned to Eli again. "Who was the killer?" Eli hesitated. He shook his head once, small. "I didn't see his face," he said, "but I felt the ring." "The ring," I repeated. Eli nodded. "Heavy, square, like it got a stamp. A signet ring. Old money, old families, or new men pretending they belong in old rooms. That narrowed the field in Harlem the way a blade narrows options." I straightened up and I could feel the room shifting again. Not toward panic now, toward decision. Because if somebody is making moves with that kind of confidence, and my name is in the middle of their mouth, then somebody is setting a board, and I don't like arriving late to games that involve my pieces. The boiler man reached into his coat, not fast but not slow enough either. His fingers closed around something metal. Eli saw it too. His shoulders tensed. His hands curled like he wanted to disappear into his own skin. I didn't move my hands, didn't raise my voice, didn't do none of that theatrical foolishness. I just looked at the boiler man and spoke like I was telling him the weather. "Don't." He paused, and that pause told me he was considering it anyway. That's what betrayal looks like before it becomes action. A man thinking he can win against the moment. Then from the hallway outside, footsteps came fast, more than one set, controlled, not running, just moving with purpose. The door handle rattled. A voice called through, polite like a banker, cold like a gun barrel. "Mr. Johnson," the voice said. "Boss says bring the boy upstairs, right now. He's got someone he wants Eli to shake hands with." I held my stare on the boiler man while my mind played the chessboard 3 moves ahead. Because if the boss wanted the boy upstairs, that meant the boss was about to test that curse on somebody important or somebody dangerous. And either way, if Eli touched the wrong person, Harlem was about to watch power bleed out in public. The lock clicked again, this time from the outside. The door started to open. And I still hadn't decided which man in this room was the first one I needed to put down. The door opened slow, like it knew better than to rush. 2 men stepped in wearing calm the way some people wear armor. Clean coats, clean shoes, hands empty but not useless. That told me everything. These weren't muscle. These were messengers, the kind that smile while the knife is already on the table. "Boss is waiting," the taller one said, eyes never leaving Eli. "He don't like repeating himself." I angled my body just enough to block the boy without making it obvious. Subtlety keeps you breathing longer. "He'll wait," I said. "He always does." The shorter man laughed under his breath. "Not tonight." That word tonight carried weight. It meant something was already in motion. Deals signed. Lines crossed, blood priced in advance. Eli's breathing hitched. He didn't ask questions. Kids like him learn early that questions don't save you. I leaned down just enough so my shadow covered his shoes. "You feel that pressure in your head," I murmured. "That buzzing." He nodded. "That's because somebody upstairs thinks you belong to them," I said. "You don't." The taller messenger shifted his stance. Not aggressive, just ready. "We ain't here to argue philosophy," he said. "Boss wants a demonstration, that's all." A demonstration. That meant a body with a pulse. Somebody they didn't mind losing, or somebody they wanted broken without pulling a trigger. I straightened and finally looked at them both. "Who's the guest?" I asked. The shorter one smiled wider than necessary. "Man from downtown, big reach, bigger mouth, says he don't believe in ghosts." That made my jaw tighten just a touch. Men who don't believe in ghosts usually become one after they disrespect the wrong history. I glanced at the boiler man. He'd gone quiet, too quiet. Hands still buried in his coat like he was waiting for permission or courage, whichever came first. "Walk," the tall messenger said, stepping aside. The hallway outside smelled like cigars and money. Same as always, different stakes. We moved. Every step Eli took felt measured, like he was counting the distance between disasters. I stayed close enough that if he tripped, I'd catch him. Not out of kindness, out of ownership. Upstairs, the room was dressed for confidence. Leather chairs, low lights. Bottles that cost more than houses. The kind of room men use to forget consequences. The boss sat at the head, relaxed, too relaxed. Across from him stood the guest, mid-40s, sharp suit, signet ring on his right hand, square face, square smile. There it was, the ring. My stomach went cold just for a second. The guest noticed Eli immediately. His eyes lit up not with fear but curiosity. "This him?" the guest asked. "The kid." The boss nodded. "That's him." The guest crouched slightly, getting eye level. "A mistake. Power should never bend down. It tells the truth by accident." "So," the guest said softly, "you the one who makes men see things." Eli didn't answer. The boss chuckled. "He's shy." The guest stood and extended his hand. "Let's fix that." Time slowed the way it does when violence is deciding who it likes. Eli looked at the hand. I shook my head once. Small, almost invisible. He saw it anyway, but the boss cleared his throat. "Go on, boy." Orders don't always come with volume. Sometimes they come with inevitability. Eli reached out. Their hands met. The guest's smile froze, just stopped. His pupils expanded like he'd been dropped into deep water. "No," he whispered. "No, no." He stumbled back, knocking over a chair. His hand clawed at his chest, then at his face like he was trying to peel something off. "I didn't," he gasped. He ran into the street. The boss leaned forward now, interested. The guest fell to his knees. "I told them not to," he sobbed. "I said scare him, just scare him." What? Eli yanked his hand back, crying out like he'd been burned. Blood ran from his nose, thin and fast. The guest collapsed fully, curling in on himself, screaming words nobody else understood. Then came the smell. Fear has a smell, so does guilt when it breaks. The boss stood slowly. "Well," he said, "that's unfortunate." I stared at him. "You knew," I said quietly. The boss shrugged. "I suspected." The guest convulsed once more, then went still. Dead doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just settles. Silence took the room. The boss looked at Eli like a man assessing a weapon's range. "You see," he said, "you're special, and special things don't get to decide where they go." Eli swayed. I stepped forward without asking. "That man," I said, pointing at the body, "killed a kid." What? The boss smiled thin. So the next man you put in front of him," I continued, "might be you." That smile vanished. The room tightened. Guns didn't come out, but hands got closer to coats. The boss stared at me for a long moment. "You always think 3 steps ahead," he said. "That's why you still breathing." I didn't blink. "And you," he went on, eyes sliding back to Eli, "you don't leave this building anymore." Eli's knees buckled. I caught him before he hit the floor. That was when I understood the real move. The guest wasn't the test was me, to see if I'd let the boy become a house pet, a tool, a leash around Harlem's future. I held Eli upright and met the boss's gaze. "You cage him," I said, "and everything he touches dies." The boss leaned back, considering. "Then I'll make sure he only touches what I want dead." That's when the lights flickered, just once. The temperature dropped enough for breath to show, and from somewhere deep in the building a scream echoed, long, panicked, and wrong. Not the guest, someone else. The boss stood up fast now. What the hell was that? Eli lifted his head slowly. His eyes were darker than before. "I didn't touch him," Eli whispered, which meant whatever was happening had already started. The scream cut off like a wire snapped. No echo. No explanation, just gone. Men started talking all at once. Fast whispers, bad math, fear disguised as strategy. The boss raised a hand. Silence came back, but it came shaky. "Check it," he ordered. 2 guards moved for the hallway. Confident steps that thinned out halfway to the door. One of them hesitated. That hesitation was loud. The door swung open. Cold rushed in first. Not winter cold, grave cold. The kind that don't belong indoors. The guard's voice floated back tight. There's blood." Another step, and the safe's open. That did it. The boss moved toward the door himself, anger sharpening his spine. He didn't look back. Men like him never do. I stayed where I was, one hand steadying Eli, the other loose at my side. Eli was staring past everyone now. Not at the door, not at the boss, at the walls. "They're close," he murmured. "Who?" I asked. He swallowed. "The ones who didn't get justice." That's when the lights went out, not flickered. Out. Dark swallowed the room like it had been waiting. Someone cursed. Someone else dropped something metal, a chair scraped. Then footsteps, not running, circling. A voice whispered from the dark, not Eli's. "You said shake his hand." A gun went off, wild, pointless. A body hit the floor hard enough to rattle glass. Eli cried out and clutched his head. I felt it then, the shift, the board flipping. This wasn't a tool anymore, this was a reckoning. Emergency lights kicked on, red and weak. The boss stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the hall like it had betrayed him personally. 3 men lay down out there, all alive, all screaming. Each one reliving something they'd buried deep. The boss backed up slowly. "No," he said. "No, this ain't how." Eli straightened. His voice came out steady now, too steady. "You can't stop it," he said. "You showed me how it works." The boss looked at me. For the first time he looked unsure. "You set me up," he said. I didn't answer because the truth was worse. Nobody set him up. He just thought he was the smartest man in every room, and Harlem punishes that kind of thinking. Eli took 1 step forward. The lights dimmed again. The boss reached for his gun, and that's where I made my move. Not toward Eli, but toward the exit, because when the dead start collecting, the smartest thing a living man can do is not be there when the bill comes due. Behind me, the boss screamed my name. Ahead of me, the stairs dropped into darkness, and I knew whatever Eli was becoming. It wasn't done yet. The stairs didn't creak. That's what bothered me. Old buildings always talk. Wood complains. Nails whisper. But these steps stayed quiet, like they were holding their breath. I moved fast but not loud, speed without panic. Panic gets sloppy. Behind me, upstairs turned into chaos, shouting, furniture breaking, a gun firing twice, measured, controlled. Somebody still thought rules applied. They were wrong. Halfway down, the air thickened, not smoke, not dust, pressure, like the building itself was leaning in. Then I heard Eli, not crying, not screaming, talking, but he wasn't talking to anyone alive. "I didn't know," he said softly. "I didn't ask for it." Each step down made his voice clearer, closer, even though he should have been above me. That's when I understood something critical. He wasn't following me. He was everywhere. I reached the bottom and turned the corner toward the service hallway. That's where they keep exits they don't advertise. Doors meant for deliveries, not escapes. The door was open. Good sign, too good. I slowed. Inside the hallway, 3 men were on their knees, same men who'd been laughing earlier, same men who thought a child was a trick. Their eyes were open, bodies still, but their mouths moving. "No more," one whispered. "I see her," said another. "I didn't mean it," the third cried. None of them noticed me. They were busy drowning on dry land. Eli stood at the far end of the hall, alone. Lights above him flickered like they were scared to stay on. He looked smaller down here, younger. The power didn't make him bigger. It made the world heavier around him. "You shouldn't be here," I said. He turned. His eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time I felt it, not fear, responsibility. "They won't stop," he said, "even if I leave, even if I disappear." "You don't know that," I said. He shook his head slowly. "I know what they've done," he replied. "They don't forget, they just hide it." A sound echoed behind us. Footsteps, many. The boss's voice cut through the hallway, strained but sharp. "Eli," he called. "Son, listen to me." Eli flinched at the word son. I stepped between them without thinking. "This ends now," the boss said, coming into view, gun raised, hands shaking just enough to tell the truth. "You don't get to decide that," I said. He laughed wild. "I built this, I run this." The hallway lights blew out, dark again. Then Eli spoke, calm as a man reading numbers off a ledger. "You killed your partner," he said. "Buried him under the old loading dock. Told his wife he skipped town." The boss froze. Eli kept going, and he's been waiting. Something moved behind the boss. Not fast, not slow, certain. The boss turned, screamed. I grabbed Eli's arm and pulled him back toward the open door. "Now," I said. We ran. Behind us, the hallway filled with sound, metal bending, voices overlapping, a man begging someone who couldn't answer anymore. We burst outside into the night air. Cold hit us hard, breath visible, street empty. Eli collapsed to his knees. I crouched beside him. "You still with me?" I asked. He nodded weakly. But his eyes were fixed on the building. "I can hear them," he whispered. "Even out here." I followed his gaze. Every window on the upper floors was dark, except one, top level. A silhouette stood there, watching us, not the boss, something else, something that didn't come down with the rest. The window cracked just enough, and a voice, low, patient, and very familiar, floated out into the street. "Mr. Johnson," it said, "you always leave before the real conversation." My blood went cold, because I knew that voice, and if he was here. Then this wasn't just about Eli anymore. This was about Harlem, and the game had just moved to a much darker board. I didn't look up right away. That's rule number 1 when a man thinks he's above you: don't give him the satisfaction of eye contact too soon. Eli was shaking now, not from cold, from weight. The kind you can't put down. "Stay here," I told him. He grabbed my sleeve, tight, desperate. "He knows me," Eli said. "He's touched something." That made me finally lift my head. The silhouette leaned against the window frame like he owned the night. No rush, no nerves, a man comfortable being the last one standing. "I didn't touch the boy," the voice said. "That would be crude." The window slid open wider. Light spilled just enough to catch his face, older than the boss, sharper too, gray at the temples, eyes still hungry. This was a man who didn't need to threaten. He let outcomes do it for him. "I've been watching you for years, Bumpy," he said. "You always did prefer the long game." I smiled without humor. "And you always preferred letting other men bleed for you," I replied. He chuckled. "Efficient men survive." Sirens wailed in the distance. Too distant, too slow, bought time. The man leaned forward. "The boy," he said, eyes on Eli now. "He's a correction, a balancing act, something this city's overdue for." Eli recoiled like the words burned. "You want to own him," I said. The man shook his head. "No, I want to aim him." That's when I knew this wasn't about control. This was about weaponizing consequence. "You walk away," the man continued, "and Harlem stays standing. You interfere and the boy becomes a storm nobody outruns." I felt Eli's grip tighten again. "Don't listen," Eli whispered. "He's already made deals with the dead." That caught the man's attention. His smile thinned. "Careful," he said. "That mouth of yours opens doors you can't close." The air dropped another degree. Windows along the block began frosting over. Streetlights buzzed. I stepped forward, putting myself fully between Eli and the building. "You want a conversation," I said calmly. "You come down here, man to man." The man studied me for a long moment, then he shook his head slowly. "Not yet," he said. "This story needs tension." The silhouette backed away from the window. Before it closed, he left me with one last sentence. "Enjoy protecting him while you can. Every king loses a piece eventually." The window shut. Darkness swallowed the building again. Eli sagged against me, exhausted. "Bumpy," he said faintly. "He's not afraid of me." I looked up at the dead windows. "That's because," I said, "he thinks he knows how the game ends." Sirens got closer now, real close. I helped Eli to his feet. "Then we changed the ending," I said. Behind us, the building groaned, deep, structural, like something inside it had finally settled or been fed. And somewhere above, something laughed. We didn't run when the sirens hit the block. Running makes you memorable. We walked. Two shadows sliding down the sidewalk like we belonged there, like nothing just tore a hole in the night behind us. Eli leaned heavy on my side. Every step cost him. Power like his don't come free, it collects interest. Police cars screamed past the corner and piled up in front of the building. Lights bouncing, radios popping, men shouting questions nobody wanted answered. I didn't look back. Harlem always watches. You don't need to turn around to feel it. We cut through an alley, then another, then into a stretch where the street lamps flicker even on good nights. The kind of place the city forgets until it needs to hide something. Eli finally spoke. "He's still talking," he said. "Who?" "All of them." I kept my pace steady. "What are they saying?" "That it's not finished," he whispered. "That this was just a signal." I stopped under a busted light. That word signal sat wrong. A signal to who? Eli closed his eyes. His breathing slowed like he was listening to a radio only he could tune. "To men like him," he said. "Men who think suffering is an asset." That answered more than I liked. We weren't dealing with one mastermind. We were dealing with a network, a philosophy, a sickness that wore suits and called itself order. I crouched so we were eye level. "Listen to me," I said. "You don't owe them anything, not answers, not justice, not blood." Eli opened his eyes. "But they're already moving," he said. "I can feel it, deals being made, names being traded." That's when the street behind us emptied. No cars, no voices, no wind, a clean cut. I felt it before I saw it. 3 men stepped out of the shadows ahead, not street muscle, not cops, hunters. Their coats were dark. Their eyes were trained. Their hands were visible and relaxed. The middle one spoke. "Evening, Mr. Johnson." I didn't reply. He smiled anyway. "Our employer requests the boy," he said. "No violence necessary." Eli stiffened. "I won't touch you," Eli said quickly, panic edging his voice. The man nodded. "We'd prefer you did." That told me everything I needed to know. They'd learned. They de-adapted, which meant this thing had already escalated beyond Harlem politics. I took a step forward. "Go home," I said. "This isn't your hunt." The man tilted his head. "Respectfully," he said, "it is now." The air dropped again. Eli gasped. I felt the ground vibrate soft, subtle, like something waking up under concrete. The men noticed it too. Their smiles faded. Behind them, at the mouth of the alley, shapes began to form. Not clear, not solid, but present. Eli's voice cracked. "I didn't call them," he said. I put a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes," I said, "help shows up uninvited." The middle hunter took a step back. "Stand down," he ordered his men. Too late. The shadows behind them grew longer than the alley allowed. Whispers filled the air. Not loud, not screaming, accusing. One of the hunters dropped to his knees, hands over his ears. "No," he whispered. "I was just following orders." Orders always sound clean until the bill arrives. I pulled Eli back slow. "We're leaving," I said. The hunters were no longer looking at us. They were looking behind themselves, at the past. We slipped away as the alley filled with voices and regret. 2 blocks later, Eli stopped again. "They're afraid now," he said. "Good," I replied. He looked up at me, eyes too old again. "But fear spreads," he said, "and when it does, they'll come harder." I nodded. "Let them," I said, because I already knew the truth. The moment they decided to hunt a child, they stopped being predators and started being targets. By the time dawn thought about showing its face, we were underground, not tunnels, not sewers, basements. Harlem got layers. You don't survive long here unless you know which ones still breathe. The place belonged to a woman named Miss Leela. Ran numbers back when numbers meant something. Eyes sharp as razors. Memory better than most men's futures. She didn't ask questions when she saw Eli. Just locked the door and turned the radio up. "He carrying something," she said. "I can feel it." Eli sat on the cot, elbows on knees, staring at his hands like they might move on their own. "I don't want to hurt anybody else," he said. Miss Leela snorted softly. "Baby, wanting don't stop nothing." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "What do you know about the man in the window?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "Which one?" She said, "There's more than one." That landed heavy. She poured coffee she didn't drink anymore and set it aside. "They call him a broker," she continued. "He don't run crews, he connects them, sells leverage, sells fear, sells futures that don't belong to him." Eli looked up. "He knows the dead," Eli said. "Not like me, he listens without paying." Miss Leela's mouth tightened. "That's dangerous," she said. "Dead don't like owing." The radio crackled news about a disturbance, multiple casualties, no suspects. Same story every time the world slips. I pushed off the wall. "He wants to aim the boy," I said. "Turn consequence into currency." Miss Leela nodded slowly. "That kind of man don't stop," she said. "He escalates." Eli pressed his palms to his temples. "They're showing me places," he whispered. "Rooms, basements, boats." I crouched in front of him. "Names." He hesitated. "Some I recognize," he said. "Some I shouldn't." That meant judges, financiers, men who hid behind distance. Miss Leela crossed herself. "You got a storm sitting in your house, Bumpy," she said. "You can't just ride it." "I'm not," I replied. "I'm steering." A knock hit the door. 3 slow taps. Miss Leela froze. Nobody knocked down here unless they already knew. I felt the air shift again. Eli stood up on his own this time. "He found us," he said. The knock came again, polite, patient. From the other side of the door, the broker's voice drifted through the wood, calm as a priest. "Mr. Johnson, we need to talk about the boy." Miss Leela's hand trembled near the lamp. I held up a finger. "Wait." The broker continued. "You think you're protecting him," he said, "but all you're doing is delaying the inevitable." Eli whispered, "He's smiling." I stepped closer to the door. "You come in," I said. "You don't walk out." The broker laughed softly. "I won't need to," he replied. because by sunrise Harlem will already be choosing sides. That's when the radio cut out. Silence swallowed the room, and beneath it a low hum, like a crowd holding its breath. Miss Leela backed away from the walls. Eli's eyes went blacker than I'd ever seen them. "They're waking up," he said. And for the first time since this started. I wasn't sure I could keep him human. The hum turned into whispers, not loud, not frantic, organized, like a meeting nobody living was invited to. Miss Leela dropped into a chair, breath shallow. "That sound," she said, "means somebody crossed a line a long time ago." Eli took a step toward the door, slow, drawn. I grabbed his wrist. "Don't," I said. He looked at me, not pleading this time, certain. "They're not angry," he said. "They're focused." That scared me more than rage ever could. Outside, the broker's shoes scraped lightly like he shifted his weight. He wasn't leaving. "You feel it too, don't you?" His voice floated in. "The city's remembering." I leaned close to the door. "You always talk like you're not part of the problem," I said. "Men like you forget one thing." "Oh," he replied. "Harlem don't like being reminded who bled for it." Silence, then a sigh, genuine, almost tired. "You think I'm the villain," he said, "but I'm just efficient. The suffering is already here. I monetize it." Eli's breathing deepened. "That's why they hate you," Eli said quietly. "You make it useless." The temperature plunged. Frost crept across the floorboards like veins. Miss Leela whimpered. I felt pressure behind my eyes, images brushing past, not landing, just letting me know they existed. The broker's voice lost its smooth edge. "Boy," he said, "you don't understand scale. I can protect you, teach you control." Eli shook his head. "You don't control memory," he replied. "You drown in it." A crack split the doorframe, thin. Hairline, the broker stepped back. I heard it, for the first time, fear. "You're letting them in," he snapped. Eli took another step forward. I didn't stop him this time, because sometimes leadership means knowing when to let the weapon choose its target. The whispers swelled, forming names, dates, places. The walls bled cold. The door bulged inward like something heavy leaned on it from the other side, many somethings. The broker raised his voice now. "Mr. Johnson," he called. "This city will burn if you don't stop him." I answered without raising mine. "It's been burning," I said. "You just sold the matches." The door split, wood cracked like bone. A hand pressed through, not Eli's. Not human, not solid, the broker screamed, not loud, broken. Eli's voice layered over others now, dozens deep. "Accounts are due," he said. The door exploded inward. Cold swallowed the room. Miss Leela prayed. I stepped back into shadow. Because what came through that doorway wasn't something you interrupt. It was something you survive. And as the broker's scream stretched into something endless, I realized Harlem wasn't choosing sides. It was choosing a reckoning. The cold didn't rush in. It settled like it planned to stay. The doorway was gone, just splintered wood and a shape where the broker used to stand. Not a body, not a ghost. Something in between, folded inward like a man crushed by his own reflection. His mouth was open, still talking. No sound came out. Eli stood at the center of it all, feet planted, shoulders squared. The boy wasn't shaking anymore. That scared me most. The voices weren't shouting now. They were coordinated, calm, surgical. Miss Leela slid down the wall, tears running without sobs. "Lord, forgive us," she whispered. "This ain't vengeance. This is bookkeeping." Eli turned his head slightly, like he was listening to a whisper meant only for him. "They don't want him dead," he said. I frowned. "Then what?" "They want him remembered." The thing that had been the broker collapsed in on itself, skin folding like paper soaked too long. Images flashed across his face, other faces. Men, women, children, lives he'd traded, names he'd erased. His eyes locked onto mine for half a second, and in that look I saw it. Regret don't hurt like guilt. It hurts like clarity. Then he was gone, not dragged. Not destroyed, absorbed. The cold began to lift, slow and reluctant. The whispers faded into a low echo like a subway train disappearing into distance. Eli staggered. I caught him before he fell. His skin was colder than it should be. "Bumpy," he murmured. "They're not done." I held him upright. "With who?" He looked at me, and for the first time since I met him, his eyes showed fear not for himself. "For you," he said. Outside, the city roared back to life all at once. Sirens, shouting, engines, radios, too much too fast. Miss Leela scrambled to her feet. "They coming," she said. "Police, feds, everybody who smelled smoke." I nodded. "Pack light," I told her. "Don't look back." She hesitated, then nodded once and moved. I guided Eli toward the back exit. That's when my phone vibrated. One message. No name, just a symbol, a chess knight. And underneath it, 5 words. "You just changed the board." I stared at the screen, then at Eli, then at the city waking up angry and confused and hungry for answers, whatever he was becoming. Whatever I had just allowed. It wasn't a Harlem problem anymore. It was bigger. And somewhere out there, men were already planning how to survive it or how to own it. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. "Stay close," I told Eli, because the next move wouldn't be quiet, and I had a feeling. The game was about to turn on me. We didn't take the street. Too many eyes, too many phones, too many people who mistake chaos for opportunity. Miss Leela vanished into the back like she'd rehearsed it years ago. Smart woman. Survivors always are. Eli and I moved through a service corridor that smelled like damp concrete and old secrets. Harlem keeps its history underfoot. You just gotta know where to step. "You still hearing them?" I asked. He nodded, slow. "Not like before," he said. "More like echoes." "Good," I replied. "Echoes fade." He didn't answer. That worried me. We emerged into a narrow side street where the lights worked just enough to lie. I paused, scanning reflections, windows, shadows that didn't quite match. That's when Eli stopped walking. "They're here," he said. My hand went to my coat, not fast, not slow. "Who?" "The ones who don't believe," he replied. "The ones who think fear is just another language." A van rolled to a stop at the end of the block. No markings, clean, too clean. The engine stayed running. 2 men stepped out, calm, confident, government confidence. One of them held up a badge I didn't bother reading. "Mr. Johnson," he said, "we need the boy." I smiled thin. "You always do." The other man's eyes never left Eli, not predatory, analytical. "Son," he said, "you're not in trouble, you're important." Eli leaned closer to me. "They've already decided what I am," he whispered. I stepped forward just enough to block their line of sight. "You don't get to label children," I said. "That's how monsters start." The first agent sighed like this was paperwork gone wrong. "You think this ends with the broker?" he asked. "You think he was the top?" The van door slid open behind them. Inside, monitors glowed, files, photos, places we'd never been. Names I recognized, names I didn't want to. Eli's breath caught. "They've been watching," he said. "Not me, you." That hit harder than any threat. The agent nodded once. "You've always been good at reading the board, Mr. Johnson, but you missed one thing." "What's that?" I asked. He smiled. "You were never just a player." The van's interior lights flickered, just once. Eli gasped. "They don't know what they're holding," he said urgently. "If I go in there." The agent reached out, not touching, just close enough. "Decision time," he said. "Walk away, or become part of the problem history can't forget." I looked at the boy, at the city behind him, at the future standing in that van pretending to be organized. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't sure which move kept the most people alive. The engine revved, the door stayed open, and somewhere deep under the city something answered back. The sound didn't come from the van. That's what made every man on that block freeze. It came from below, not an explosion, not a rumble, a pulse. Like the city's heart skipped, then hit back harder. The agents felt it too. I saw it in their shoulders, the way training met instinct and didn't know which one to trust. Eli staggered, grabbing my arm. "They're angry," he said. "Not at them, at you." I didn't ask who he meant. I already knew. The agent closest to the van took a step back, just one. But power doesn't retreat unless it has to. "Son," the other agent said, voice tighter now, "whatever you're feeling, that's stress. Trauma, we can help." Eli laughed. It came out wrong. Layered echoed. You don't help, he said. You catalog. Streetlights flickered. One went out completely, then another. The van's monitors glitched, faces scrambling, names overlapping, images bleeding into each other. I caught a glimpse of one file before it vanished. A younger me, mugshot angle, Harlem precinct. Under it, a label. Asset unconfirmed. That's when it clicked. They weren't here for Eli. They were here because something old had finally woken up and decided to stand near me. The first agent lowered his badge. This is bigger than you, he said. I nodded once. Everything always is, until it is. Eli's grip tightened. His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for me. If they take me, he said, they'll learn how to aim it. I looked at the agents, at the van, at the dark spreading between streetlights like ink. And if they don't, I asked. Eli swallowed. Then it learns how to choose. Another pulse rolled through the ground, stronger this time. Somewhere glass shattered. The agents backed up together now, instinct overriding orders. The one with the badge raised a hand. We can walk away, he said, for tonight. I met his eyes. For tonight, I agreed. They closed the van door, slow, careful. The engine revved again, then the vehicle rolled off into the dark like it never wanted to be remembered. Silence followed. Eli sagged against me, exhausted, breathing shallow. It's spreading, he said. Not fast, but steady. I stared down the block where the van disappeared. Harlem was still standing, for now. But the board wasn't just changed. It was alive, and it was learning who moved who. I took a breath, already knowing the truth I didn't want to say out loud. The next time someone came for the boy, they wouldn't come asking, and the next move wouldn't be mine alone. Mourning didn't bring relief. It brought witnesses. Store shutters rattled open. Buses sighed at corners. Harlem stretched like it always did, pretending the night hadn't left fingerprints on everything. Eli slept sitting up in a back room I trusted more than most people. His breathing was shallow, like even rest cost him something now. I stood by the window, watching the street reflect itself. Every man who passed looked normal. That's what bothered me. Normal is how danger hides. My phone vibrated again. Same number, same symbol. This time a voice message. I didn't play it right away, because I already knew what it was going to say. Miss Leela shuffled in, wrapped in a coat she'd owned longer than some men lived. They talking, she said. Quiet, careful, like they don't want the words to hear themselves. About the boy, I asked. About you, she replied. That landed heavier. I finally played the message, the broker's voice. Not panicked, not broken, recorded earlier, prepared. Mr. Johnson, it said smoothly, if you're hearing this, then you've already made the predictable choice. Protection over profit, loyalty over leverage. A pause intentional. I respect that. But understand something. What the boy carries doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the city, and cities always collect. The message ended. No threat, no instruction, just certainty. Eli stirred behind me. They're drawing lines, he said without opening his eyes. Neighborhoods, crews, old names coming back. I turned to him. How long before it moves again? Eli opened his eyes, fully black now, no white left. Soon, he said, but not like before. Explain. They won't come for me, he said. They'll come for what I care about. Miss Leela crossed herself again. That's how they do, she muttered. Can't touch the fire, so they burn the house around it. A knock came at the front. Single knock, firm, familiar. I felt the shift immediately, not supernatural, strategic. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. One man stood there, well-dressed, calm, no visible weapon. Someone I hadn't seen in years, someone I'd buried alive in my past. I opened the door halfway. He smiled. Bumpy, he said. Long time. Eli's voice floated from behind me, sharp with warning. Don't let him in, he said. He's already dead. The man at the door chuckled softly, eyes never leaving mine. Kids got imagination, he said. But you and me, we got unfinished business. I felt the board shift again. Not violently, deliberately. And I knew right then the next move wasn't about survival, it was about sacrifice. I stepped aside and let him in. The door closed behind him with a sound that felt final, not loud, not dramatic, just decided. He walked in like he owned the memory of the place. Same smooth steps, same careful breathing. Only difference was his eyes. They didn't blink enough. Dead men never rush. Miss Leela backed into the corner without a word. She knew better than to challenge ghosts. Eli stood up slowly. "No," Eli said. "You're not supposed to be here." The man smiled wider. "Funny thing about rules," he said. "They change when people stop enforcing them." I watched his hands, empty, still dangerous. "You died in 42, I said evenly. 3 bullets, I watched you bleed." He nodded. "You did." Eli's head tilted like he was listening to something new. "There's nothing holding him together," Eli whispered. "Just memory and permission." The man's smile faltered for half a second. That told me Eli was right. "You came to make an offer," I said. "Say it." He straightened his jacket. "They want balance. The city's tipping, too much truth too fast. That boy is a flood." Eli clenched his fists. "I don't choose what comes," he said. "I just don't stop it." The man's eyes slid to him, cold now. "That's the problem." He turned back to me. "They want you to slow it down, control it, or," he shrugged, "remove the source." The room went still. Even the air seemed to wait. Miss Leela gasped softly. I didn't move. "Who's they?" I asked. The man hesitated just long enough. "Everyone who survives," he said. Eli stepped forward. "If you touch him," Eli said to me quietly, "I won't stop what happens next." That wasn't a threat, that was information. The man laughed nervously. "You hear that, Bumpy? Kid thinks he's got leverage." I stepped between them. "He does," I said. "You just don't understand the currency." The man's face hardened. "Then you've chosen," he said. The lights dimmed again, not flicker, dimming like someone turning a dial. The man's shadow detached from his feet. Eli sucked in a sharp breath. "He's not alone," Eli whispered. "He brought insurance." The shadow moved, not toward Eli, toward me, and that's when I realized the real play. They weren't here to take the boy, they were here to see if I'd trade myself. The shadow stretched, reaching. The man's voice dropped to a whisper. "Do the right thing," he said. "Step forward, end this clean." Eli cried out, "Don't." I looked at the boy, then at the thing crawling across the floor toward my feet, and I smiled. Because they still didn't understand Harlem. You don't win here by sacrificing kings. You win by breaking the rules they wrote. I took one step back instead. The shadow hesitated, confused. And confusion in a room like that is lethal. The lights went out completely, and someone screamed, but it was Eli, and it wasn't me. The scream cut short like someone slammed a door on it. When the lights came back, the man was on his knees, not begging, not praying, listening. His shadow was gone, not retreated, not hiding, gone like it never belonged to him in the first place. Eli stood with his hands slightly raised, fingers trembling like he'd just let go of something dangerous and alive. "He lied," Eli said. "He didn't bring it, he was wearing it." The man's mouth opened, but no words came out. His eyes darted around the room, searching for something that wasn't there anymore. I stepped closer. "You came back from the dead carrying debt," I said calmly. "That never ends well." He finally found his voice, thin, fractured. "They said it would protect me," he whispered. "Said I'd be untouchable." "Everybody says that," I replied. Miss Leela crossed herself again, hands shaking. "Lord," she murmured, "even the dead getting hustled now." The man looked up at Eli, terror naked on his face. "Put it back," he begged, "please." Eli shook his head. "I don't put things back," he said softly. "I let them finish." The air thickened again, but this time it wasn't cold. It was heavy, like gravity doubled its opinion. The man screamed as memories hit him, not pain, not death, but every choice he'd ever made after dying. Deals signed in whispers, names sold, futures sabotaged. His body convulsed as if truth had weight. I didn't look away. Men like him don't deserve privacy at the end. When it was over, he collapsed face first onto the floor, alive but empty. Eli exhaled shakily. He won't remember who he was, Eli said. Just what it felt like to lose. I nodded. That's enough. Sirens rose again in the distance, closer this time. Real close. Miss Leela moved fast. We gotta go now. I helped Eli toward the back. As we reached the door, Eli stopped. They're watching, he said. Who? I asked. He pointed upward. Everyone who thought they were untouchable. Outside, the sky darkened unnaturally, clouds rolling in against the wind. Somewhere across the city, alarms began going off: banks, offices, private buildings. Systems failing, secrets slipping. I felt it in my bones. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was exposure. And exposure kills more empires than bullets ever did. I opened the door. The street waited. And Harlem was about to remember who built it on buried truths. The street didn't look different. That's how you know something is wrong. Same cracked pavement, same corner store opening late, same man sweeping yesterday off the sidewalk like routine could protect him. But the air had weight now. Not cold, not heat, attention. Eli stepped out beside me, hood up, eyes hidden, and the city reacted like it recognized him without knowing why. A woman across the street paused mid-step. A man in a parked car suddenly decided not to start it. Harlem was listening. Sirens layered on top of each other in the distance, overlapping jurisdictions, overlapping fears. Too many calls, too few explanations. Miss Leela locked up behind us and didn't say goodbye. Survivors don't linger. We walked, not fast. Fast draws conclusions. You feel that? I asked. Eli nodded. They're checking their ledgers. Who? The ones who never thought they'd have to, he said. We passed a newsstand. Radios were buzzing, not one story, many. Financial outages, missing persons. High-profile men found alive but broken. Minds gone quiet. Names erased from their own mouths. Eli flinched. They're connected, he whispered. All of them, same thread. That thread got a name. I asked. He hesitated. That told me enough. Names carry power. Saying them invites them closer. We turned a corner and almost ran into him. Young, clean, expensive coat, shoes too new for this block. He smiled like he practiced. Mr. Johnson, he said, I was hoping we'd meet organically. I didn't slow down. You're in my way, I said. He walked backward, matching pace. People are panicking, he continued. Markets, courts, old families, they think the city's sick. Eli stopped. The man's eyes flicked to him just for a second too long. That's your mistake, Eli said calmly. You think this is illness. The man swallowed. What is it then? He asked. Eli stepped closer. The streetlight above us flickered, then steadied. It's memory, Eli said, coming home. The man laughed, thin and forced. You can't run a city on ghosts. I finally stopped walking. You can't run it pretending they don't exist either, I said. The man's phone vibrated. He checked it. Color drained from his face. He looked up at me, and for the first time the polish cracked. They're burning files, he said quietly, destroying evidence, turning on each other. I nodded. That's the sound of power realizing it left fingerprints. He took a step back from Eli. You don't know what you're starting, he said. Eli tilted his head. I'm not starting anything, he replied. I'm standing where it ends. The man turned and walked away without another word. Didn't run, didn't look back, smart enough to know when the room has shifted. We kept moving. Block by block, the city felt tighter, like a fist closing slowly. Eli finally spoke again. They're going to force a choice, he said. Soon. What kind? I asked. He looked up at me. One where someone like you doesn't get to stay in the middle. I didn't answer, because he was right. The city doesn't tolerate balance for long. It always demands a weight on one side, and I could feel it now. Harlem wasn't just watching, it was deciding. By afternoon, the city stopped pretending. Sirens faded, replaced by silence in places that never shut up. Offices closed early. Cars double-parked and stayed that way. Men who usually argued on corners spoke in whispers instead. Harlem was holding its breath. We cut through a brownstone basement I used back when disappearing was a skill, not a hobby. The air down there tasted old, like secrets that never found daylight. Eli sat on the steps, elbows on his knees again. Same posture, different weight. "They're narrowing it," he said. "Who?" I asked. "Everyone," he replied. "They don't want chaos, they want control back." I leaned against the wall, arms folded, thinking 3 moves ahead and still not liking any of them. "That means a meeting," I said. Eli nodded. "Tonight." Of course it was tonight. Pressure never waits for daylight. He looked up at me then, and for a second I didn't see the boy or the curse or the storm following him. I saw trust. And that's the most dangerous thing anyone ever hands you. "They're going to ask you to choose," Eli said quietly. "Between what and what?" I asked. He hesitated. The voices were loud again. I could tell by the way his jaw tightened. "Between saving the city," he said, "and saving me." I exhaled slow. Men like me don't get those kinds of choices. We get consequences dressed up like options. A knock echoed above us. 1 knock, then 2 more, measured, confident, not rushed. Someone who expected the door to open. Eli stood up. "That's them," he said. "Stay here," I told him. He shook his head. "If they see you without me, they won't be honest." That was the problem. They were never planning to be honest anyway. The knock came again, louder this time. A voice followed, familiar, polished, dangerous. "Mr. Johnson," it called. "The city would like a word." I closed my eyes for half a second, then opened them, because whatever walked through that door next wasn't coming to negotiate. It was coming to test how much blood Harlem was willing to spill to feel safe again. And this time, I wasn't sure whose blood they meant. I opened the door halfway, enough to talk, not enough to invite. 3 men stood there, different faces, same posture, expensive calm. The kind that comes from believing the room already belongs to you. Behind them, a black sedan idled, engine low, patient. The middle one spoke first, older, silver at the temples, voice trained not to tremble. "We represent interests," he said, "civic, financial, judicial." I smiled faintly. That's a long way to say scared. His eyes flicked past me. "To the boy," he corrected. Eli stepped into view on his own. That shifted everything. The men didn't step back, but their breathing changed. Subtle, human, good. Fear keeps people honest longer than respect. "You wanted a word," I said. "Say it." The older man clasped his hands. "The city is destabilizing," he said. "Accounts wiped. Men confessing to things they buried decades ago. Systems breaking." Eli tilted his head. "That's not destabilization," he said. "That's gravity." One of the men scoffed. "You think truth can run a city?" Eli looked at him, just looked. The man stopped scoffing halfway through the breath. The older one raised a hand quickly. "Enough. We didn't come to antagonize." "You came to bargain," I said, "which means you already lost something." Silence. Then the older man nodded. "We want containment," he said. "Structure, boundaries." Eli's voice dropped. "You want me quiet." "We want you focused," the man replied. "Directed, you don't decide who falls, we do." That was it, the offer, not chains, not cages, a throne. I felt Eli's body tense beside me. "They're lying," he whispered. "They don't want control, they want immunity." The older man leaned closer, lowering his voice like that made it private. "You walk away," he said to me, "and we'll make sure the boy is protected, comfortable, studied, useful." I laughed, not loud, not mocking, just tired. "You still don't get it," I said. "You can't study a reckoning." The man's jaw tightened. "Then this becomes hostile." The temperature shifted instantly. Not Eli, something else. Something old and patient, stirred by the word hostile. Eli's eyes darkened again. "You don't get to threaten," he said. "You're already late." The men backed up as one. The sedan door opened behind them. Inside I saw restraints, not for wrists, for heads. I stepped forward, placing myself fully between Eli and the car. "You leave," I said calmly, "or you learn what happens when the city answers instead of asking." The older man studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, not kind, calculated. "This isn't over," he said. "We'll be back with solutions you can't refuse." They got in the car, doors shut, engine pulled away slow. too slow. Eli exhaled hard like he'd been holding himself together with will alone. "They're going to force it," he said. "A crisis, something public." What? I nodded. "Of course they are. Because men like that only believe in order when it wears a uniform." I looked down the street where the sedan disappeared. Somewhere out there, a plan was already being written, one that would make the city beg for safety, even if it meant sacrificing a child to get it. And that's when I knew. The next move wouldn't be quiet. It would be loud enough to scare everyone. And once it started, there wouldn't be any stepping back. Night came early, not by the clock, by the mood. Windows darkened before sunset. Radios whispered instead of played. Men who usually stayed outside went home without finishing their sentences. That's how you know a city feels something coming. Eli sat on the floor, back against the wall, knees pulled in. He was listening outward anymore, he was listening down. "They're building it," he said. "Building what?" I asked. "A reason," he replied. "Something big enough to justify cages." I didn't like the way that sounded. Miss Leela called just once. No greeting, no warmth. "Something hit Midtown," she said. "Power outage, but not random, banks first. Then courts. Then hospitals, just records, not machines." That confirmed it. They were staging fear, controlled damage, the kind that makes people beg for someone to take charge. "Thank you," I said. "Go dark." The line went dead. Eli looked up at me. "They're going to blame me," he said. "No," I replied. "They're going to blame chaos." A siren wailed nearby, then cut off abruptly. Another started somewhere else, then another. Different rhythms, same panic. Eli stood. "They're lighting the fuse," he said. "If it burns long enough, they'll come back with uniforms and laws and say I caused it. That's when they'll offer safety," I said, "at a price." Eli's voice dropped. "Me." I didn't answer right away, because leadership ain't about lying when the truth is sharp. Outside, a boom echoed, not an explosion, transformer blow, followed by darkness across 3 blocks. People shouted, car alarms screamed, fear found its voice. Eli flinched. "They're scared," he said. "That makes them dangerous." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Listen to me," I said. "You don't answer panic. Panic don't listen. You let it burn just enough that it shows who lit it." He shook his head. "They won't wait," he said. "They never do." That's when my phone rang. No symbol this time. No hidden number, just a name. City Hall. I answered without saying hello. A woman spoke, calm, professional, smiling through the wire. "Mr. Johnson," she said, "we're activating emergency powers. We'd like your cooperation." "About what?" I asked. There was a pause. "About the boy." I looked at Eli. He was already shaking his head. "Not yet," the woman continued. "But soon. There will be an incident, something tragic, public. We can prevent it together." "By locking him away," I said. "By stabilizing him," she corrected. I smiled without warmth. "You didn't call to ask," I said. "You called to warn me." "Yes," she admitted. "Because when this happens, we don't want you on the wrong side of history." I ended the call. Eli stared at me. "They've chosen," he said. "So have we," I replied. Outside, the city cracked louder. More lights went out. More voices rose. Harlem was sliding toward a moment nobody could stop. I placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. "When they make it public," I said, "that's when you stop hiding." His eyes widened. "That would tear it open," he said. "Exactly," I replied, "because once fear gets a face, it stops being useful and becomes accountable." Eli nodded slowly. "They'll come tonight," he said. I looked toward the window where red and blue lights danced against the walls like warning signs written in color. "Good," I said, "because if they wanted a spectacle, Harlem was about to give them one they couldn't contain. They came just after midnight, not in waves, in formation. Black SUVs, city vans, unmarked units pretending they weren't looking at each other for cues, men and women in jackets that said authority without saying who they answered to. Harlem watched from behind curtains, phones lifted then lowered, people already learning what not to record. Eli stood by the window, still as a statue. They're afraid of the wrong thing, he said. I adjusted my coat, calm, measured. That's how you know they're dangerous. A loudspeaker crackled to life outside. The voice was official, rehearsed, and just nervous enough to be human. This is a public safety operation. Please remain indoors. Public safety always shows up when somebody powerful feels exposed. Eli closed his eyes. They're setting the story, he murmured. Unstable youth, violent anomaly. Necessary containment. I nodded. They always write the ending first. A knock hit the door. Not polite this time, authority-heavy, final. Before I could answer, the voice came through the wood. Mr. Johnson, we know you're inside. We need the boy to come with us. I opened the door fully. Let them see me. Let them see calm. Behind the barricade of uniforms, cameras sat ready. Not news cameras, evidence cameras, the kind that decide truth later. You got a warrant? I asked. The man in front hesitated long enough. Eli stepped beside me. Every light on the block flickered. Street lamps, dashboard lights, camera LEDs. Men shifted uneasily. Eli spoke, and his voice carried without shouting. You don't want me scared, he said. Scared makes things messy. The man raised a hand to his team. Easy, he said. Nobody wants trouble. That's when the crowd behind the barricade started murmuring. Names floated up, old names, men who disappeared, women whose cases went cold, stories people thought only lived in kitchens and funerals. Eli's breath hitched. They're answering, he whispered. The ground vibrated, not enough to knock anyone over, enough to be undeniable. A woman in a suit pushed forward, face tight. Shut this down, she hissed. Now. Eli took one step forward, the air bent. Windows cracked up and down the block. Somebody screamed, not from fear, from recognition. I felt it then, the moment snapping into place. This wasn't a standoff anymore. This was a reveal. I leaned close to Eli. Once you do this, I said quietly, there's no going back. He looked at me, not like a child, like a judge. They already crossed it, he replied. He raised his hand, and the city leaned in. That's when every camera died at once. Every light went out, and in the sudden, absolute dark, something spoke that didn't need a body, and Harlem finally understood. This wasn't about control anymore. It was about confession. The darkness didn't lift, it listened. No sirens, no engines, no radios, just breathing, hundreds of them caught in one shared moment where nobody knew if moving was a mistake. Then the voice came again, not loud, not booming, everywhere. Names started falling out of the dark like rain, not shouted, spoken, clearly, carefully, first and last names, dates, places. Gasps followed each one. A man in the crowd dropped to his knees when he heard his father's name. A woman screamed when she recognized her sister's case file, one that had been stamped closed 20 years ago. Uniforms shook. One officer ripped his earpiece out like it was burning him. The woman in the suit backed away, tripped over her own heels, and scrambled to stand again. Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. Because there's no authority in a room where the truth is talking. Eli stood perfectly still. His arm still raised. Tears streamed down his face, not from pain, not from fear, from volume. It's too many, he whispered. I stepped closer, anchoring him. Breathe, I said. You don't have to carry all of it. They're not asking, he said. They're returning. The ground shuddered again. Softer this time, like punctuation. In the dark, men started confessing. Out loud, not because they wanted to, because they couldn't stop. I buried him by the river, one voice sobbed. We altered the report, another choked. She wasn't resisting, a third cried. Hands went up, not in surrender to memory. This is what power never plans for. You can suppress riots. You can spin scandals. You can disappear bodies. But you can't negotiate with conscience once it wakes up. The lights snapped back on, not all at once, block by block. And when they did, the scene was unrecognizable. Men in authority on their knees. Cameras shattered on the ground. Officers staring at their own hands like they belonged to strangers. The woman in the suit looked at Eli with naked terror. You did this, she said. Eli lowered his arm slowly. No, he replied, voice hoarse. You did, I just remembered. Silence fell again, but this time it wasn't fear, it was aftermath. Ambulances began arriving not for injuries but for minds that couldn't hold themselves together anymore. Civilians stood frozen, phones raised again, this time shaking. History was being filmed whether it liked it or not. I put a hand on Eli's shoulder. "That's enough," I said. He nodded. The air relaxed, just a fraction. The voices faded, retreating like a tide that had made its point. The officials didn't arrest anyone. They couldn't. Who do you cuff when the crime scene is the past? As they pulled back, quiet, broken, reorganizing on the fly, I knew this wasn't over, not even close, because exposure don't end power, it forces it to adapt. Eli leaned into me, barely standing now. "They'll try again," he murmured. "Cleaner, smarter." I looked out over Harlem, awake, shaken, alive. "Let them," I said, "because once a city hears the truth speak out loud, it never unhears it." And the men who thought they owned silence, they were about to learn how loud memory can get when it stops asking permission. By morning, the city wore a different face. Same buildings, same streets, but the silence between sounds had changed. People didn't ask what happened last night. They told each other what they heard, what they felt, what names crawled up their spine and refused to leave. That's how truth spreads, not fast, deep. Eli slept on the couch, body still, mind somewhere far away. His breathing was shallow, like even rest came with conditions now. I sat across from him, counting nothing, thinking everything. My phone buzzed again. Different symbol this time, a circle, unbroken, and a message underneath. "We are convening." No address, no time, didn't need one. "They always do," I muttered. Miss Leela stood in the doorway, coat already on. "They blaming ghosts on the news," she said, "calling it mass hysteria, trauma response, shared delusion." I nodded. "That's step one." "And step two?" she asked. I looked at Eli. "They build a box big enough to hold a miracle," I said. "Then they convince the world it's for everyone's safety." Eli stirred. "They're lying again," he said without opening his eyes, but louder this time. He sat up slowly. "I can feel them reorganizing," he continued. "New names, new faces, same intentions." "Where?" I asked. "Everywhere that hates unpredictability," he replied. "Courts, churches, universities, men who think chaos is a disease." Miss Leela shook her head. "They don't cure disease," she said. "They profit from it." A knock came at the door. Not hard, not soft, certain. I stood. Before I reached it, Eli spoke again. "Whoever's on the other side," he said quietly, "isn't afraid of me." That narrowed it down to the worst kind of person. I opened the door. A woman stood there alone, mid-30s, plain coat, no jewelry, eyes sharp enough to cut paper, no badge, no weapon, just confidence. "Mr. Johnson," she said, "my name doesn't matter. I'm here on behalf of a coalition that believes last night was inefficient." I leaned against the frame. "Funny," I replied. "People usually say historic." She smiled once. "Quick, professional. History is what we clean up afterward," she said. "What happened disrupted too many systems at once." Eli stepped into view behind me. Her eyes flicked to him, then back to mine. "You see," she continued, "he's not a solution, he's an exposure event." Eli's voice cut in, calm and sharp. "And you're here to plug the leak." She nodded. "We're here to offer structure," she said. "A framework, boundaries." I laughed under my breath. "You always say that right before you erase somebody." Her smile faded. "You protect him," she said, "and the city fractures. You give him to us, and we make sure the fractures are managed." Eli stepped forward. "And if I say no?" he asked. The woman met his gaze without flinching. "Then we stop asking," she replied. The temperature in the room dropped just enough to notice. Not Eli, something else listening. I closed the door slowly, locking it. "Get comfortable," I said. "You just walked into a conversation you can't leave early." Her eyes narrowed. "Be careful," she warned. "You're standing between a child and the weight of an entire system." I nodded. "Yeah," I said quietly, "I noticed." Eli's hand brushed my sleeve. "They're not alone," he whispered. "They never are." Outside, a low hum began to rise again. Faint, distant, coordinated. Like a city clearing its throat, and I knew then. The next time memory spoke, it wouldn't be in whispers, it would be in verdicts, and somebody powerful had just volunteered to be on trial. The woman didn't sit. People who sit think the room belongs to them. She stayed standing, hands loose at her sides, eyes moving just enough to map exits, angles, threats. Professionals always do that first. You're not the first ones to protect something dangerous, she said, and you won't be the last to fail. Eli didn't react. That worried her. I could see it. What you call dangerous, Eli said evenly, is just truth without permission. She exhaled through her nose. Truth needs containment, otherwise it becomes a weapon. I stepped closer, not aggressive, intentional. Funny, I said. You say that like weapons haven't been running this city since before you learned the word. Her jaw tightened. Outside, the hum grew louder, still distant, still controlled, like a jury assembling. You felt last night, she continued, voice lowering, how fast things fall apart when memory floods the system. Hospitals, courts, markets. We had to sedate 12 judges. Eli blinked. They remembered, he said. Yes, she replied sharply, and remembering doesn't make you fit to rule. That's the lie, Eli said. Forgetting does. Silence cut the room in half. The woman shifted her weight. You don't understand scale, she said. If he keeps doing this, cities won't just confess. They'll collapse. I nodded once. Empires collapse when they're hollow. Her eyes snapped to me. You think you're outside this? I smiled thin. I know I'm not. She took a breath, steadying herself. Here's what happens next, she said. We create a crisis you can't counter, a public tragedy, something that forces people to beg us for control. And when they do, you cage the boy, I finished. She nodded. For his own good, she said. Eli laughed softly. That laugh rippled the air. You keep saying that, he said, but you don't mean it. No, she admitted. I mean for ours. The hum outside surged. Windows rattled. Miss Leela's voice echoed faintly from the back room, praying under her breath. I felt it now, pressure from below, from above, from inside the walls. Harlem wasn't just listening anymore. It was forming an opinion. I stepped closer to the woman until we were almost face to face. You came here thinking this was negotiation, I said calmly, but you're already on the stand. Her eyes flicked toward the ceiling. You hear that? I asked. She swallowed. Hear what? That, Eli said, voice layered now, not shouting, just present. That's testimony lining up. The woman backed toward the door for the first time. This isn't how power works, she said. No, I replied. This is how it ends. Her phone buzzed. She checked it. Color drained from her face. They're resigning, she whispered. Men don't resign like this. Eli stepped forward. They're not resigning, he said. They're remembering who they were before they agreed. The hum outside broke into something louder, voices, distant but distinct, rising together. Names again, not shouted, read, like a roll call. The woman turned, reached for the door, and froze because the handle wouldn't turn, not stuck. Refusing, she looked back at me, panic breaking through discipline. Stop this, she said. You don't know what comes after. I met her eyes. Neither did you, I said, when you decided silence was safer than truth. Eli's voice softened, almost gentle. You still have a choice, he said. Listen or be remembered. The lights dimmed. Not out, dimmed. Like a theater right before the curtain rises, and somewhere beyond the walls of that room the city leaned forward. Ready to hear who would speak next, they made their move at noon. Broad daylight. Cameras ready, statements pre-written. That's how you know it was planned by people who never expected resistance. The city announced a tragedy before it even happened. Breaking news crawled across every screen: credible threat, unstable individual, emergency containment. Eli's face blurred just enough to feel official, just enough to feel guilty. Harlem felt it immediately. The hum outside twisted into anger. They're lying loud now, Eli said, voice steady but distant. That's how they cover fear. I watched the feeds roll in on a muted television. Officials I recognized. Others I didn't, all reading from the same invisible script. "They're baiting you," I said. "They want you to react." Eli shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "They want the city to react for me." That's when the helicopters showed up. Low, aggressive, circling like they already owned the sky. Miss Leela cursed under her breath. "They trying to make him a monster." "They always do that before they build a cage," I replied. The woman from earlier called again. "No warning this time." "You have 10 minutes," she said flatly. "After that, we take control of the narrative and the boy." I looked at Eli. He was calm now, too calm. "They don't understand," he said. "If they force it public, it won't be contained to me." "That's the risk," I said. "You ready to take it?" He met my eyes. "I've been carrying their secrets," he said. "Let them carry one of mine." The helicopters dipped lower. Crowds gathered despite the warnings, phones out, curiosity louder than fear. The city had chosen a witness. I placed my hand on Eli's shoulder one last time. "Don't punish the city," I said. "Let it see." He nodded and stepped outside. The noise hit him first. Shouting, orders, sirens stacked on sirens. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "Son, remain where you are. Help is coming." Eli raised his head. The air tightened. Every screen across the city glitched at once, and Eli spoke. Not shouting, not threatening. "Just clear, I'm not the danger," he said. "I'm the record." That's when the broadcast stopped being live and became confessions. They couldn't cut it fast enough. Feeds jumped. Audio lagged, but the damage was already done. Faces appeared on screens, officials, financiers, judges speaking words they didn't choose. I signed off on it. We buried the report. It was cheaper this way. Crowds went silent, not screaming, not cheering, listening. The helicopters pulled back. Pilots don't fly into truth they can't outrun. Inside command centers, men scrambled to shut systems down, but every shutdown triggered another release, another voice, another ledger opened. The woman from the coalition watched it unravel from a glass office somewhere above the city. Her phone rang once, then again, then stopped ringing altogether. She understood before anyone told her. You can't govern a city once it knows exactly who fed it lies. Eli stood in the open street, hands lowered now, exhausted. "They're emptying themselves," he whispered. "I didn't take anything. They're giving it back." I stood just behind him, letting the moment breathe. Police lines broke without orders. Some officers removed their badges, others just walked away. No riot, no rebellion, just refusal. By dusk, resignations rolled in like weather reports. Courts adjourned indefinitely. Accounts were frozen not by hackers but by employees who suddenly remembered who they were before the compromises. The city didn't burn, it stalled. And stalling for a machine built on momentum was catastrophic. Eli finally turned to me. "It's done," he said. I shook my head slightly. "Nothing like this is ever done," I replied, "but it's finished enough." He swayed. I caught him. As the sun dropped behind the buildings, Harlem exhaled for the first time in days. Somewhere deep beneath the noise, the hum faded, satisfied, not gone. And I knew the system would survive, just smaller, just humbler, and never the same. They never came for Eli again, not officially, no warrants, no midnight vans, no polite offers dressed as mercy. Because once power gets named out loud, it loses its favorite weapon, deniability. Eli disappeared quietly, not running, not hiding, just unrecorded. Some say he went south, others say west. A few swear he never left Harlem at all. I don't correct them. Cities need legends more than explanations. What I do know is this. After that week, men started choosing their words carefully again. Deals slowed, handshakes hesitated, silence stopped feeling safe. Memory had changed the rules, and Harlem kept going, scarred, awake. Less patient with lies. Sometimes late at night when the city settles into itself, I feel it again. That low pressure, that reminder, not a threat, a balance. Eli didn't become a weapon, didn't become a god. He became something worse for people like them, a mirror. And mirrors don't chase you, they just wait for you to walk past them alone.